are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amba TV.
Mama Amba, with your love for us, we can assure Ambazonia is free. Today on Mother's Day, we shine a heartfelt spotlight on the mothers of Ambazonia, whose spirits in the face of unimaginable trials remain unbroken and fiercely radiant. Each Ambazonian mother stands as a testament to resilience, nurturing life and hope in a landscape marred by turmoil and the harshness perpetrated by French Cameroun's brutality. Their pain is deep, having shed blood and tears for their beloved land and lost children. Yet in their profound grief, they have not buried their beliefs in freedom and justice, but have instead sown these values even deeper in the soul of Ambazonia. Their love, boundless, their courage, immeasurable. These remarkable women have faced the darkness, yet they continue to embody the light, remaining fruitful amidst adversity. Their labor tirelessly, not just in the fields of their cherished land, but in the heart of their communities, nurturing the next generation with the strength and wisdom of warriors and peacekeepers. Their hands, though weathered by hardship, are the same hands that cradle the future, that plant seeds of hope and sustain the spirit of independence that defines Ambazonia. Today, we honor the Ambazonian mothers who, in the silence of their sacrifices and the loudness of their battles, show us what it truly means to fight for the essence of home and freedom. To every mother who has picked up the metaphorical weapons of resilience, love, and unyielding faith in the face of adversity, your valor inspires us. You do not fight alone. Your dreams for a peaceful, independent Ambazonia echo in the hearts of many around the world. On this Mother's Day, we celebrate you, Ambazonian mothers, not just as the hearts of your homes, but as the undying heartbeat of a nation striving for its rightful place under the sun. Your resilience sketches the blueprint for Ambazonia's tomorrow. May your tears of yesterday water the seeds of tomorrow's freedom, peace, and prosperity. Happy Mother's Day to the unwavering, formidable mothers of Ambazonia. Your strength lights our path to a brighter future. Mama Amba, with your love for us, we can assure Ambazonia is free.
I think this is a revolution, and the revolution is a fast-moving train. And in a fast-moving train, you change things as you move. There are things that were not foreseeable 2 days ago, 2 years ago, 5 years. This is not the first time, 2023, and people do. It's very important. And so,
gentlemen, and I'd like the both of you to interchangeably, somebody who is ignorant, inform them of a preconception or a deliberation or the way he feels that the struggle should go, or is he coming to consult? If it is the latter, which means he's coming to do a consultation and to seek opinion, a democratic position, if the people object or reject, have you thought of an option where the stakeholders see differently from the think tank that had the preconception? Let me start with you on that, Barrister Fro.
Yes, the president has called the assembly to consult on a certain number of proposals, and if that assembly accepts or rejects the proposal, that is democracy. Somebody will argue that there is no democracy in revolution. I'd like to remind them that we are in the 21st century and revolutions practice democracy too. We're working for the people, and we cannot make any decision without consulting the people. The result of the consultation will determine whether we go forward or we continue where we are today. I want to let everybody know that the president is coming to consult his people. And that's why I made mention of the House of Assembly, the interim House of Assembly, the interim House of Representatives. Because if he consults and the people modify what he's consulting, fair and good. If they reject it, fair and good, we'll stay where we are and we'll continue. But he cannot take a decision by himself. He must consult with his people. And that's why we are meeting today. That's the long and short of the answer, Paddy.
And no longer interim government. This is the government fully. There we go. Government of Southern Cameroun, Federal Republic of Ambazonia.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber woman. Today, Friday, we have 3 topics to share with our listeners, our viewers, on matters that concerns Ambazonians. We hope you will stay tuned for the whole program. Please share the link and have others join us. I want to first start by thanking everyone who is constantly here watching us. I also want to pay special greetings to those who are at the home front, those who are in ground 1, and all bona fide Ambazonians all over the diaspora. We appreciate you. We are together. We are on our way home. We have 2 guests today. Both of them are not strangers to the Horizon. We'll have Dr. Yaya Fonye and also Dr. Fred Lobati. But before I bring them on, we'll continue our conversation from last week, talking about how the United Nations Committee on Torture embarrassed the Cameroun government earlier this month when they were reviewed in Geneva. We will talk about health issues, diabetes, and another short topic. And we'll talk about the recent very, very instrumental conference or meeting that took place in Washington, D.C. This past weekend, November 16th and November 17th. Very, very instrumental in our journey. So without further ado, I want to welcome the 2 guests on the Horizon, Dr. Fred and Mawini. I'm sorry, Dr. Fred and Dr. Yaya. If you're on, I'd like to see you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Haran, thank you very much. I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to share with our people and shed light on what truthfully is going on and what truly La République is up to and what they do on a daily basis. You know, people suspect that La République tells lies, but this occasion gave a small window for people to see for themselves the level of falsehood that they present, and also for us to see the limitations of this UN committee and in fact, that they do their best with their limited resources to get the most of the information that we know about. And we have more information than they had. We'll be happy to share that as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I just want to start the program by briefly talking about the conclave or the meeting that we had with the president. Just as a matter of information, we will not discuss whatsoever what was discussed during the meeting. So I think the best way to handle this is to just read the communique that came from the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, Dr. Martin Mungwa. This is for the benefit of those who are watching at the home front, those who are in ground one that may have not had access to this communique. So let me read it. Ambazonia government convenes in Washington, D.C., highlights progress and commitment to sovereignty. Washington, D.C., November 18, 2024. The government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, under the leadership of President Dr. Samuel Ikomisako, had a pivotal meeting in Washington, D.C. from November 16 to 17, 2024. The gathering served as a platform to deliberate on critical issues shaping the Amazonian revolution and assess strides made toward achieving recognition as a sovereign nation. A major focus of the discussions was the commendable performance of the Ambazonia State Army. The government recognized and lauded the Army's unwavering commitment to upholding international humanitarian standards, including strict adherence to the Geneva Conventions in context of armed conflict. Furthermore, the administration acknowledged the Army's steadfast dedication to protecting the rights and safety of Amazonian people, often under siege by the atrocities of French Cameroun forces. The meeting reinforced the government of Ambazonia's resolve to advance its quest for sovereignty through strategic diplomacy, unwavering support for the rule of law, and a steadfast commitment to the values of justice and human dignity. As the Amazonian people continue their courageous pursuit for freedom and self-determination, the government reaffirms its unyielding commitment to building a nation rooted in peace, democracy, and respect for international law. The journey to sovereignty remains challenging, but with resilience, solidarity, and the dedication of our people, Ambazonia stands closer than ever to realizing its rightful place among the community of nations. Long live the people of Ambazonia, short live the war. Signed, Martin Mungwa. So I just wanted to read that so that people are aware. It was a meeting that I attended. Thank God, I was really blessed to be there. It was really advertised to all the arms of government and those who were able to make it, because some people had the will but didn't have the means because of either work restrictions or other family obligations. They couldn't make it. But those of us who were there, we were well represented. And I think if Dr. Yaya was on, she could say one or two things. But whenever she joins, she would be able to say something. Dr. Fred, do you have any question for me that is general about the meeting before we
Not really. I'm not a member of government, so I'm not really just an obedient citizen of our land. Let me put it that way.
Thank you so much. Incidentally, there were quite a few rumors here and there, people complaining of one thing or the other. But Amazonians, rest assured that all the people that were present at that meeting all focused on one issue. And thank you, you're here, Dr. Yaya. We were just talking briefly about a meeting in Washington, D.C., knowing that we cannot share any details, we cannot mention any topics that were discussed, anything that came up. What you were present, you flew all the way from Germany. Thank you. What do you want to share as far as is shareable?
Oh, thank you so much, Mape, for having me again on the horizon, and thanks, Dr. Lobati, for sharing the podium with you. Is always an honor. Yes, and greetings, comrades from all corners of the world. Yeah, the conference was a huge success. I think, first of all, just meeting with other comrades, great comrades like you, Mape. It was nice seeing you, especially after ASSC one in Berlin. That was 2019, so that's 5 good years. So wow, you still look as young as you were then. So
Thank you so much.
it was just very, very, very energizing. First, meeting people that you share common interests and common goals. The joy, the camaraderie that really was amongst us is really undescribable. And I think that goes a long way to spur up the momentum. We all left,
Amazing.
went back more energetic. I can't call names, but Marcel, we saw
Okay.
everybody on the pictures. It was just
I see.
wonderful, and the exercise was great and significant. And I think that's the wisdom we see in a president, because a lot of whatever we did, he could have also done it on his own, or maybe he could have looked for a team, a think tank to do the work. But I guess he wanted to really tap the minds of Ambazonians, so it was quite consultative. So whatever result outcome we have or we had was a result of a broad-based consultation, pulling brains together. So it was a really great patriotic exercise, and I am very proud to have been a part of this. And I'm so happy and grateful to all those who made it. And I just want to say congratulations.
I think that, Dr. Yaya, I don't think that this is a meeting that could have taken place on Zoom because of um, the wealth of information, the type of deliberation that we didn't want the enemy to have knowledge of, right? Because when you have these Zoom meetings, you don't know who is joining, you don't know who is listening. So it needed an in-person uh, uh, deliberation. So I think that's one point I really want to make. You had to be there to know
Definitely.
what was important, what had to be discussed, and not give that information out. We are all bound by a code of silence. We cannot tell anyone unless somebody is in my house with me that I trust, that I may say something, but I will not say it on the phone to anybody. Nobody can call me and say, my patients, what would I be talking for that meeting? No, you will not hear anything from me. So don't call other people that attend and ask them questions on the phone or whatever. They will not tell you.
Good.
Okay. But I want to say something also. This government, we started way back as far as Sesoko being the first interim president and then moved on to President Sako. If we are really truthful, we will realize that this is the only government that has really brought people together in person to deliberate things on a consistent basis. You mentioned ASSC 1, and there's been ASSC 2. There's been all the other meetings that have happened in October 1st celebrations in Washington, D.C., and the last meeting, December 2023, when they signed the new constitution, and then this one. So this president, this government is really focused, and all the other mushroom groups there that claim that they are presidents, or what are they doing? You don't hear things like this happening because they are just there, one or two or three people in name, and not really doing anything. I don't know whether you want to comment on that.
Who?
No, you. Dr. Fred is just listening. He's
Okay.
what? Yes, yeah,
I know that area, so that's why I wanted to be sure.
yeah.
Yes, again, I think without a doubt, we say facts don't lie. People can be good at propaganda. People can play games, spin with words and cajole people into listening to great speeches. However, when push comes to shove, I think people look at the works that are being done, especially on the ground, and not just the speeches or the propaganda that we may hear from different pressure groups or factions from the former interim government. We're now a government, and we therefore exhibit all the characteristics of a government with different departments, different tiers and arms. There is equity in terms of power. We have three arms of the government to make sure there are checks and balances. We have the executive, the legislative arm, and the judiciary. I don't think any of these factions or pressure groups have any of this. And we see the work that the different departments are doing, the Department of Communications, Department of Women's Affairs. We have a regular program that we look at, especially at the end of the year, taking care of our prisoners and widows. We have the HSS that from time to time will take care of the refugees. We have a Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization that's in charge of looking for the money to fund the revolution. So we can go on and on. I don't want to stretch out. We have a government website that is going to be updated. So for those who doubt or who are confused or who fall for the rhetoric of the enemy, who claims that they don't know who to talk to, they definitely know who to talk to. They are only avoiding to talk to the government because that's what they fear the most. They are very happy talking to other groups, factions, opposition parties, whatever they want to call it. But they know who is the principal actor. They know who have the forces on the ground. And they are just shying off that because they wouldn't like to meet this government face to face. I think Dr. Lobati probably has something to chip in there. More,
Well,
I guess.
the deliberations in Washington, D.C., I was not there, and I tried to be as neutral as possible.
Okay, now we moved a bit, we digressed.
Yeah, so you always have some differences of opinion, but generally, you can feel those who have good intentions to remain one and strong and achieve our goals. And if you realize that we are not going in the same direction, then they don't need to be part of us. That's how I would say about it.
Okay, we're going to be going to the topic on how the United Nations Committee on Torture, Committee Against Torture, embarrassed the government of La République du Cameroun, who was represented by Ambassador Salmon Earhart. Let's get to that. I want to introduce that topic by, there was a short video, but I don't think he has time to play it since we started a little bit late. So we'll just get into the crux of the matter. Dr. Yaya, you feel free to answer after I've asked Dr. Fred a few questions. So, whenever this committee meets, it's based on information that they sent to the committee. So there's this review article called Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. 6 periodic reports submitted by Cameroun under Article 19 of the Convention pursuant to the simplified reporting procedure. And this was submitted, date received by the United Nations Committee January 11, 2022. And it covers atrocities from 2017 to 2021. So I'm going to ask a few questions of Dr. Fred. Let me see what I wrote down to ask him. So, Dr. Fred, I don't know, did you read that article, which is a 6 periodic review, and listen to the questions posed by the committee on what the Cameroon State Party replied?
Yes, I've been able to read the entire document, 36 pages long, as well as commentary on other utterances by the committee, as well as I listened to the first portion of almost 3 hours of, that's 2 hours 58 minutes of the first meeting, and I hope that that will be played at some point in ABC so that our people can see and hear for themselves. So it's not just people commenting on something that happened. And what I can tell, basically, like you said, these people are acting on reports that have been submitted to them by, say, NGOs or other people, or that they have also gathered even from social media, as well as the report by the state party, that's La République du Cameroon's representative here. And so you already see a limitation. They acknowledge that they are limited by finances, so they are not able to send people to the field to gather information for themselves. They are relying on information provided to them. And so that's already one of the big limitations, because if they had the freedom, these guys could come to the field and go to the rural areas and interview individuals, let them point out different atrocities that occurred at the so-called mass grave, they will have even more information. But anyway, we are dealing with some limitations here. Yes, I was able to read the entire article and watch the video.
Dr.
And
Yaya,
read.
your sound. I don't know if Dr. Yaya can mute her sound. It's interfering a little
sorry.
bit.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Multitask.
Yeah, correct. So I was able to read that. One of the limitations is that they're dealing on things that have been submitted to them and what La République du Cameroun hypocritically presents to them. But there are other things that are not even mentioned that happened. Remember that when this our crisis started, La République was picking up individuals, flying them in military helicopters over uninhabited areas like in Adamawa, shoot them and throw their dead bodies into the ground. Those ones nobody is even talking about. There are so many other secret prisons, like the airport in Bamenda, that the La République deliberately carries people, picks them up by plane, flies them there, takes them there by military vehicles, where the people are tortured to death and their bodies disposed of. We don't even know whether they dissolve them in acid or how they get rid of those bodies. Those ones are not even mentioned. And there are many other secret prisons, like I'm sure there is something in Bui Division where they are doing such atrocious acts. Those ones are not even mentioned in this article. So they're only talking on what some people have submitted. But what I would like people to know is that all of that information is available to the US government. When the crisis started, I did contact the ambassador of the United States in Cameroon, who responded to me, and they gave us a link to the US State Department where we can submit every evidence that we gathered. And since then, we have submitted every evidence that we found to the US State Department. And we also have the Amazonian State Library of all the atrocities that have occurred since this started, that is available to be submitted to any people, even this committee, if they desire. So there's a lot of information that is available, and the US also has a lot of information. The other thing I also want people to know is that the satellite services available today are able to differentiate objects that are just 1 foot apart from each other. So all the activities that were carried out on the ground by La République military with their vehicles, they are able to tell two different individuals from each other. They can see the military vehicles. They can tell everything that happened. The satellite images can also detect mass graves where the land was tampered with, how many people were buried there. So all of that information is available. So even though La République tries its best to cover up as much as possible, that information will eventually come out with time.
Okay, could you specify? Let's talk about this section by section. Could you talk about the deliberations or the questions that had to do with the process of jailing people and what happens in the prisons? Because that came up significantly.
Correct. So very important is that the report by La République du Cameroun was all based on falsehood for those who live on the ground and experience La République military on a daily basis. The information was based on falsehood. The people who represented La République du Cameroun were primarily like the diplomat, then members of the Justice Department. I think the Anglophone lady works in the Ministry of Justice as a director there. Then there was another judge. who was there. So basically, what you realize is that the report by La République du Cameroun is skewed. The people who directly deal with taking people in custody and depriving them of their freedom, like the police and the gendarmes, they were not represented there. I think that if they were truly honest, they would have brought representatives of the police, the military, as well as the BIR that is being used to oppress the people and doing a lot of the atrocities, to be present and give a report of what they have been trained to do and what they actually do. So the information by La République du Cameroun is already skewed because it's represented only by people from the Justice Department who have been trained to basically bring falsehood. And I mean, if you read that report, it's laughable. Like you talk about the police custody, they indicate that a police should only take somebody under instruction from a judge that a crime has been committed, and you present a warrant of arrest before you take somebody in. Now, what I just said, can people in Cameroon tell me, in fact, that when the police is harassing you on the street, they present to you a document from a judge giving them authority to pick you up or harass you or take you in for some kind of questioning?
Never.
That is falsehood in itself. Then they say that the police, when they take people into custody, they are only allowed to keep them for 48 hours, renewable once, and subsequently by the state authorities, and for maximum of, it sounded almost like 96 hours, which is less than, like 5 days. Can you tell me people who have lived in jail for years, some actually more than 10 years, and their cases have not yet been brought up to the judiciary to examine? They were just picked up by the police, thrown in jail, and they have been left in there to languish and die. And their cases have not been brought up. Many have died. Many were killed. We saw mass graves in Soa, in Yaoundé, where after they had tortured and killed people, they carried the bodies, and they were pushing the dead bodies into a shallow grave and covered it up. Those are other evidences that, of course, they didn't talk about, which La République claimed there are no mass graves in Cameroon. But what I meant here was that, according to what these judges were saying, that is the procedure that they carry out in Cameroon. That a police officer will talk to the person and give them information that they have been empowered by an authorization from a judicial authority to talk to them or pick them up, and also read to them their rights. Can you imagine that they read to them their rights, that they have the authority not to speak except in the presence of a counsel, like a lawyer? Does that truly happen in Cameroon? It does not happen.
It doesn't.
And then, of course, then take them in. I see people being maltreated right there on the spot. The police starts torturing and maltreating you right there on the road or in your home, in front of family members, before they even take you into their vehicle, where if you're not careful before you arrive at the station, you may be dead, and so on and so forth. But this judge was claiming that they provide evidence that they were authorized to pick them up. They provide evidence, reading them to them their rights, that they're allowed not to speak except in the presence of a legal counsel. And when they take them in, they treat them well and observe the regulations where they cannot keep them for more than 48 hours. And if at all, with good reason and from a legal authority to extend that. That does not happen in Cameroon. La République was describing an utopian state of their imagination that does not exist in Cameroon. That is what I would say there right now. If you want to read the details, you can read that segment.
Yeah, so we have a clip that we were trying to play last week, but it didn't come through. It came through in a different language, and I think we're still having difficulties with that clip this time around. What I will do, if the clip comes up, we'll play it. But in the meantime, what I will do is I will play it on my phone, and we just get the sound. It's very important. This is about a 15 minutes clip when this rapporteur called Jose Contessa was interviewing the Cameroon government, telling them exactly what they had on record. So I want us to listen.
I would also like to thank the delegation of Cameroon
headed by Can you hear? The ambassador for their presence here at this interactive dialogue with the committee. And I would like to congratulate Cameroun on electing Mr. Philemon Diang, former Prime Minister, as President of the General Assembly of the United Nations. That election, as well as the official visit by the High Commissioner for Human Rights to Cameroun last August, points to Cameroun's role in promoting the values that unite the international community, which must be promoted and protected, including the absolute prohibition on torture. Mr. Chairman, I plan to address the following points. Definition of torture as a crime and appropriate punishment. Second, jurisdiction of military courts over civilians. Third, extradition of torture suspects. Fourth, training and survey methods. 5, prompt impartial investigation and victim protection. 6, inadmissibility of statements obtained via torture. 7, prevention of other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment. Mr. Chairman, for reasons of time, I might not go through all of those points. I might leave some for tomorrow. I will make my presentation in French and English, the two official languages of Cameroon, starting with Articles 1 and 4, definition of torture as a crime and appropriate punishment. In its concluding observations, the committee noted that Article 277(3) of the new 2016 Penal Code contained a definition of torture in line with Article 1 of the Convention, but the committee expressed concern that the article does not provide for an appropriate penalty insofar as the minimum sentence for an act of torture is 2 years imprisonment, which means that the sentence could be suspended. The committee is also concerned that in accordance with Articles 90 and 91 of the Criminal Code, the penalty for an act of torture may be reduced to 1 year's imprisonment in cases where the court recognizes mitigating circumstances. The committee expressed concern that most of the sentences handed down for acts of torture were very light and that the offence of torture is subject to the statute of limitations. What steps has the state party taken to amend its criminal code to bring it into line with Article 4.2 of the Convention and ensure that neither statute of limitations for criminal and civil proceedings nor mitigating circumstances are applicable in cases of torture or ill treatment? And the committee would also like to receive information on the following. How many cases of alleged torture were brought before the courts during the reporting period? How many cases of torture were tried by the courts during the reporting period? Please indicate the sentences handed down in each case. How many cases of torture are currently pending before the courts? What is the average duration of torture proceedings before the court? During the reporting period, what was the maximum duration of torture proceedings? On the jurisdiction of military courts over civilians, my colleague Ms. Raku has already touched on several aspects of Article 2 of the Convention. However, I would like to focus on one aspect in particular, namely the jurisdiction of military courts over civilians. In its concluding observations on the 5th periodic report, in the context of the investigations into the Anglophone crisis, the committee asked the state to make detainees available to the civil courts. In its report, the state party states that military courts have jurisdiction not only over offences of a military nature, such as those covered by Articles 30
to 67 of the Code of Military Justice, but also over, I cite, offences committed with firearms, those related to terrorism or which affect the security of the state. That's paragraph 48. This jurisdiction is extremely broad and compromises the state's compliance with its international obligations. Furthermore, in the case of offences under law number 2014/028 of December 23rd, 2014 on the repression of acts of terrorism, the period of police custody is 15 days, renewable upon authorization of the competent government commissioner. The committee received information that in 2018, more than 330 people were under sentence of death in Cameroon, a third of them for terrorism-related offences. The information also indicates that the near majority of death penalties were handed down by military courts, sometimes on the basis of confessions made under torture. This will be dealt with by the members of the committee, this question. However, we would like to know whether the state party intends to amend the law to provide reasonable time limits for police custody for acts of terrorism and to abolish the jurisdiction of the military courts over civilians, and whether detainees can file habeas corpus petitions before military courts. Furthermore, please provide the text of Articles 37(1), 38, 39 and 41 of the Decree on the Prison System in Cameroon, which regulates family visits for persons sentenced by military court.
Regarding the extradition of torture suspects, Articles 5 and 9 of the Convention, the committee notes that the state party has not received any extradition request from another state party for the extradition of an individual suspected of having committed acts of torture during the period under review. Please indicate any extradition agreements concluded with the other state's party during the reporting period. For all new agreements, are the offences referred to in Article 4 of the Convention included in the list of extraditable offences? During the period under review, has the state party exercised its jurisdiction over any person for the offences referred to in Articles 4, 5 and 16 of the Convention? Has the state party accepted or requested mutual legal assistance from another state party for cases of torture or ill treatment? If so, please give examples of cases and indicate the type of evidence or legal assistance provided. Please also indicate the agreements on or treaties on mutual legal assistance that the state party has concluded with other entities, including other countries, international courts and international institutions during the period under review. Articles 10, training and investigation methods. The committee notes that the state party offers human rights courses in national security, prison administration and magistracy schools, as well as a module on prohibition, prevention and punishment of torture in training programs for military personnel and gendarmes. The committee recognizes that these programs do impart specialized knowledge on the individual responsibility of perpetrators, the identification of victims, the taking into account of vulnerabilities, and non-refoulement. Is completion of a human rights course or training a mandatory prerequisite for employment as a public official in the armed forces, in the police forces, the prisons, or immigration and border control services? Is the prohibition, prevention, and punishment of torture module compulsory for defense forces? Is it designed as a one-off training course, or are defense forces required to take refresher courses over time? Does the target group for the prohibition, prevention, and punishment of torture module include prison officers, immigration officers, and border control officers? How many officials from each profession participated in this module during the reporting period? The state party has indicated that all training programs include instruction on sanctions against state employees in the event of torture, and that they incorporate awareness raising on how to treat asylum seekers and teach the principles of non-refoulement and techniques for detecting victims of torture and other types of violence. This is paragraph 83 of the state party's report. Please provide training materials and further details on the content of training on penalties for perpetrators of torture. The report notes that the state had not yet developed a mature method for evaluating the results of training programs for public officials and assessing their effectiveness. This is paragraph 86. The committee would like to know the exact frequency of these sessions and whether the state party has already set up mechanisms to evaluate the effectiveness of training programs. Please indicate whether existing programs include awareness raising for other vulnerable groups, in particular women, children, people with disabilities, and members of the LGBTIQ+ community. If not, what measures is the state party taking to include them in the future? How do programs integrate training on the principle of non-refoulement and its implementation, as set out in General Comment number 4 of the Committee Against Torture? Please specify which types of violence other than torture are covered by training in techniques for detecting victims of such violence. And please specify, in particular, whether and how training courses introduce techniques for identifying victims of human trafficking and gender-based violence among asylum seekers. The committee notes that capacity building sessions were held during the last review cycle. The committee is concerned that these capacity building sessions are often aimed at a very limited and select number of civil servants. In its 6th periodic report, the state party listed the capacity building sessions that it organised during the reporting period. Please indicate the measures taken by the state party to make these capacity building sessions regularly available. How does the state party select participants for capacity building sessions? Please indicate the measures taken by the state party to make these sessions available and compulsory for all civil servants. We note the state party's efforts in the area of civil servant training. The committee reiterates how important it is to evaluate such trainings in order to review and revise their effectiveness. So how does the state party evaluate the effectiveness of training courses? And how does the state party ensure that the training courses actually achieve their objectives? The committee notes the state party's efforts to improve the specific training of judicial and health care personnel in keeping with international standards. One of these training sessions was a seminar in February 2019 for justice sector stakeholders such as judicial and legal officers, as well as prison administration staff. Please elaborate on the conclusions of the training seminar for the justice sector and explain the reasoning behind them. What measures have been taken by the state party to disseminate and implement the recommendations of the training seminar? And how does the state party monitor the effectiveness of the implementation of these recommendations? Please indicate the measures taken to assess the effectiveness of the distributions of CD-ROMs containing the Robben Island guidelines and the Istanbul Protocol and the posting of these principles in police units. As requested by the committee in its list of issues prior to reporting, Please indicate what training the state party imparts to judges and prosecutors, in particular on the content and implementation of the Istanbul Protocol. Please also indicate any other training for judges and prosecutors, particularly with regard to measures to be taken in the event of an allegation of torture and the signs to look for when assessing the admissibility of confessions. This committee notes that the state party has offered train-the-trainer workshops for gynecologists, psychiatrists, midwives, and other health personnel. Please indicate the steps taken by the state party to continue the training the trainers workshops on a regular basis for all health personnel involved in the medical care of rape victims. Does the state party also offer these courses as refresher courses? And are these training courses compulsory or optional? As requested in the list of issues prior to reporting, please indicate the measures taken by the state party to establish training programs for forensic doctors and other members of medical personnel, which specifically incorporate teaching on how to detect and respond to the physical and psychological signs of torture, and also on how to document torture effectively. I shall now move on to Articles 12 and 13 on prompt and impartial investigation and protection of victims. In his opening statement, the ambassador said that investigations are opened and the preliminary disciplinary measures are taken pending judicial proceedings.
Let me address this matter by making reference to a few high-profile cases.
Here we go.
First, the killing of Cameroonian radio journalist Mr. Martinez Sogo. Mr. Sogo revealed details of financial scandals implicating members of the government and allied businessmen. As I'm sure the delegation knows, in January of 2023, his body was found days after being abducted. Media reports indicate that Mr. Sogo's body was wrapped in aluminum foil and was taken by night when no one could see it to a vacant lot with the aim of using acid to destroy it. These reports indicate that more than 6 months after Sogo's death, the 15 men imprisoned suspects who have been held since February are charged only with complicity in torture. The reports indicate, quote, that this smells of a fix, according to a security source. Another source, who allegedly has had access to the case file, said that this was, quote, inexplicable. People close to the case, according to media reports, are beginning to doubt the judicial investigation's sincerity, and some point to the absence of certain evidence which has disappeared or was never included in the case file. The committee has received concerning reports about journalists' lack of safety in Cameroon. Reports indicate that Paul Chuta, a reporter from Cameroon Web, was forced into a car, given a severe beating, and left for dead at the side of a road on 9 March of 2022, 2 days after he posted a photo on Facebook showing the finance minister and a prominent businessman who allegedly was involved in the killing of Martinez Sogo. In another recent case, Ramon Cota, a social media activist, was apparently kidnapped in Gabon on 17 July 2024 and forcibly extradited to Yaoundé. Mr. Cota's lawyer and international human rights organizations state that Mr. Cota was subject to torture. Mr. Cota has been living in Gabon for the past 10 years and is known for his TikTok videos in which he criticizes Cameroonian authorities. We understand that Mr. Gov't is currently in a cell at the Secrétariat d'État de la Défense, a prison where those deemed to be holding state secrets and therefore are a threat to the government are held, awaiting trial. We also understand that he has been placed under a 6-month provisional detention order. Reports indicate that Mr. Gov't was interrogated several times without a lawyer present, both at the Direction Générale de la Recherche Extérieure and 4 times at the Service Central de Recherche Judiciaire. According to a confidential report reported in the media, Mr. Gov't suffered from early paralysis on the left side and visual disturbances as a result of torture and mistreatment during his detention. In another case, a recent case of singer Longue, an artist who is also known for his critical views on the government, a video of Cameroonian officers torturing him emerged. In the video, Longue's hands are cuffed behind his back. He is sitting on the floor in his underwear as the soles of his bare feet are beaten with a flat machete. He pleads for the beating to stop, but the men who appear to be security agents continue. Can the delegation please specify the status of these investigations of these different cases? In the specific case of Mr. Zogo's killing, and as noted under Article 1 of the Convention, please provide additional information on the mitigating factors that downgrade the crime of torture to a charge of complicity in torture. Could the delegation specify the charges under which Mr. Gov't is being held, particularly as he was not in Cameroon when he was arrested by authorities in Gabon? Have any investigations into ill treatment or torture being initiated? In the case of artist Longue, have any investigations being initiated? As indicated in Cameroon's Human Rights Commission's website, the Commission wrote to the Minister Delegate at the Presidency of the Republic in charge of defense to ensure that the results of the investigation opened by him in the case of Longue be known before 13 November of 2024, that is today. Could the delegation please share the specific findings on those responsible for the ill treatment and torture that is visible for the world to see? In light of the committee's previous concluding observations and the information provided in the state party
de la torture et comment documenter how is concerned by reports of mass graves in the Republic, particularly after the state party's military officials located a mass grave in Yaoundé in 2023. Please indicate the measures taken by the state party to investigate allegations of mass graves, particularly in Mindif. Please explain the systems in place to enable civilians to report suspected mass graves for investigation by the state party. Please indicate whether the state party would exhume, analyze, and identify bodies at the site of a mass grave if its investigation revealed the presence of a mass grave. Finally, in the list of issues prior to reporting, the committee requested data on a long list of cases. The state party provided information on some of these cases in its 6th periodic report. Therefore, the committee reiterates its request for data for the period since 2017, disaggregated by type of offense and gender, age group, ethnic or regional origin of the victim for these cases. Please also share any individual information on the progress of these cases. This is referring to paragraphs 165 through 176 of the committee's concluding observations under the fifth periodic report. In particular, and I close with this, Mr. President, the events, and apologies for my mispronunciation, events in Ngarbu in February of 2020, events concerning the looting, burning of villages, and murders of English-speaking civilians allegedly perpetrated by the army, particularly in Babukok, Banjem, and Do in January 2020, and in the villages of Kwakwa, Dadi, Kajifu, and Bodam in December of 2017. Concerning the murder of 10 men in the village of Bole Bakundu on February 6, 2019, by soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion. On the murder of 5 civilians, including a disabled person, on April 4 of 2019, in the village of Melouf by gendarmes and soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion. Concerning the murder of a man and the destruction of houses in the village of Mancon on 15 May 2019, and the murder of 2 men on 10 July 2019. On the July 2018 murder of 2 women and their children accused by the Cameroonian army of being members of Boko Haram. Concerning the murder of 4 civilians and the enforced disappearance of 2 others on 26 June 2018 in the village of Muri, Far North region, by armed soldiers. Concerning the murder of 2 unarmed men by soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion in a Buya neighborhood known as Great Sopo on 24 September 2018. Concerning the death of 4 people in the Far North region in April 2015. And the death of a man attributed to the FDS during an operation to arrest Indian hemp growers on 4 September 2017 in the village of Kifen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stop here my presentation.
Gracias, señor Contesi.
Wow, wow, wow. Doc, I want your reaction to this, please.
This is just a foretaste of the whole article. I watched the whole 2 hour, 58 minutes of that video. And remember, that was just a preliminary session. There were subsequent ones that happened. I hope that we will be able to get video recordings of the subsequent meetings, and also that we will have time to play the entirety of this video in ABC so that people on the ground can see for themselves, hear for themselves what was asked and what La République said. And basically, like I'm saying, La République is a state of falsehood. They do their best to cover up their crimes. And that's what the representatives of La République were doing, including the Anglophone. It sounded like an Anglophone lady, a speaking lady who works in the Ministry of Defense, of Justice as a director or something. They were all doing their best to cover up the crimes of La République de Cameroun. And it's good for our people to hear this for themselves. So it's not somebody commenting on something that was said.
Absolutely. That's why I really thought that it was important to put excerpts of this long interview so that people see for themselves. We are living, those living in La République, in Yaoundé, Buea, and maybe experiencing things like this on a daily basis and not really know that the world is seeing it. The international community is aware of these crimes. They mention Gabu, they mention villages Kwakwa and all the like. La République will come with some silly excuses that they live in a land that is law and that is obeys law and order. They will say things like there's no torture, because that's what the ambassador said when in his opening statement, that they observe democracy, follow rule of law, they don't have any torture. And in fact, he said that if there's any torture going on, it's by by non-military or non-state officers, meaning that it's just lay people on the street that are committing torture, which is not the truth, which is not the case. And this Mr. Hohe said that how could crimes that are severe torture crimes be downgraded to complicity and people will spend only a few months in jail, if at all they go to jail. So this was really important for us to share. If we can lay hands on other clips on how La Republique is responding, we can play that on subsequent programs. Any other comment before we get to the health issues, health matters?
Yeah, so he mentioned about the mass graves. And in the reply, the Republic says they are not aware of any mass graves in the country. Remember, they mentioned that they don't practice torture. There is no torture in the country. So too, they said there are no mass graves, and that if there is anybody who knows about any mass graves, they should reveal it to them. I want people to understand that with modern technology and satellite, people abroad in Europe and North America and other places, civilized nations, can drill down into the ground and see the bodies of those people who were buried there and where the mass graves are located, and that the surface of the earth has been altered and they can determine when it was altered, how long ago that happened. So this thing is not a secret. They already have the data. So when they're asking La Republique, they're not asking to find out. They're asking to find how honest and truthful they are. And you hear they're already lying by claiming that there are no mass graves when there are mass graves. So the other thing is La Republique has been trying now to dissolve bodies that they have killed in acid so that nobody will be able to identify them. Even that too will not be covered. It will be identified and will be revealed.
Absolutely. So this guy, Mr. Jorge Contese, really went through 7 major points, talking about definition of torture, the jurisdiction of the military courts over civilian population. I don't want to know what I want to talk briefly about that, how the system is right now.
Correct. So basically, we in the former British Southern Cameroon never knew anything about what they call military courts. Remember, the British were controlling us. They allow our people to rule themselves by their traditional values. So we had native authority courts in our land where people were, based on their values, say those in the grass fields or those in the forested areas, based on the local traditions, were determining the crimes and what the punishment thereof is. In La République du Cameroun, the French never wanted to leave the land. And so since the 1940s, the French have been combating UPC militants. And they introduced these military courts that were literally intimidating people, catching them, locking them up, and killing them. And so after La République got its independence, they retained the military courts. And then by we attempting to join them, they extended it to us. So the concept of a military court is strange to us. It's a relic of the French rule in La République du Cameroun that they have maintained, and they're trying to do everything to justify its existence. You can imagine that somebody commits a simple civilian crime that has nothing to do with using arms or warfare, and they take him before a military court. They're frightening you already by calling it a military court. And they're doing everything to refuse that it is a wrong concept to take a civilian before a military court. We are not in a case of a war like the Second World War, where people who committed war crimes are carried before a military court. And so anyway, but that is where the concept of the military court came from. The other thing I want people to think and know is that all the law enforcement judicial system within La République du Cameroun was designed and is controlled by the French to intimidate the population, keep them subjugated and in constant fear, to allow the French to extract the resources of the land. So La République du Cameroun government is under the French presidency, the Élysée. Even their ministers get the permission to be in office from there. So all of this is under the supervision of the French, and the purpose is to subjugate and intimidate the population like they did during the time of the UPC in order to carry out the resources of the land. If you don't look at it from that perspective, you will not understand why even Biya himself and his government cannot change what they are doing. They can only change themselves when they literally break off from the French. The French are responsible for what is going on there.
Okay, so I'm going to mention a couple more things, and then we're going to transition to the topic on health and other matters. And Dr. Yaya is going to come up. So briefly, Doc, he talked about extradition, extradition of torture suspects. Also, of course, the case of the Nera 10, although he didn't really specify them. And they talked about training of their police officers, their military personnel, the judges, whether they are constantly getting trained and retrained so that they know exactly what the law, and also how to prevent. I forgot what I wrote down here, but I jotted something that I cannot even read my handwriting. Any comments about those?
Correct. So La Republique will even pretend that they do those trainings. And you heard him say that it's not for a select few. So they can get some senior officers who claim that they attended a seminar and they said something of that nature. But that's just a rubber stamp. Is a window dressing training. It's not really intended to truly train the people. It's just that I cannot get my hand on the video. But very early before the Anglophone crisis started, when in 2014, Biya passed a law in La Republique government about terrorism that frightened people, and they were wondering what does he mean by terrorism. They had people training La Republique military, even in our territory, going to Babanki, where they train the police officers. You know, they do not only train police officers in Mutengenet, but they also train them in Babanki, Sabga Hill, and the others, where the Francophone Bulu people training were telling the officers that when they don't want to listen, just put your bullet on their head and give them a blow to scatter the brain.
Wow.
I saw the video, and that's what you saw on the field. So that when things were happening, those guys were now exercising and executing what they were being trained. They were putting their bullets on people's heads and shattering their brains and scattering them. That's how they were trained. So La Republique is they don't understand the training that man is talking of there. And if at all they attempt it, they will just get some few officers and pretend that they did some training, but it does not reach down to the common man. The training to the lower level is different, and is to intimidate people, kill them, subjugate them, control them, so that they don't alter the status quo, which is basically what has been there since the French started controlling La République du Cameroun. If I happen to get that video, I will submit it to ABC to play it once. But yes, they were training their military to put, they say, just give them a coup sur la tête. Just give them a blow in the head. And that's what we saw happening on the field.
Okay, thank you so much. We present this type of topics because we as Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, we are fighting to get our own nation where things like this will not happen, where we will respect human beings. If in the United States, you could be a criminal. They arrest you, but you have your rights. In La République du Cameroun, you don't have any rights. You know, we want a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, not one where you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And they don't give you the time to prove yourself innocent. They lock you forever before you have an opportunity to go defend yourself if you are able to get a lawyer. So Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, let's continue to fight fiercely to extract ourselves from these people and really build our own country, which will be, something that our children and great-grandchildren will really love to live in. We're going to move to the next topic that has to do with health. Unless you have anything else to say, Doc, as we conclude this topic.
Not much. La République lied that they feed the prisoners, which they don't. And then they say they used to give them 290 francs a day for food, allocate. And then it was around 400 and something francs, and now it's less than 600 francs. If you live in La République du Cameroun, what can 600 or less than 600 francs a day buy for food in one day? And they claim that they give them 3 square meals a day, including fruits, not to mention drinks. All falsehood. That's all lies. So they are used to falsehood and lies telling constantly. They can never ever speak the truth. They will tell you that money was allocated for food, but you know that the money is embezzled and the prisoners feed themselves. Family members come and try to give them food, and even when they provide them food, the guards steal them. So again, you are on the ground. You know the truth, what is happening. We're just showing you this so you compare it with what La Republique is saying to what they are truly doing to you on the ground. That was one
Absolutely.
example. Then another one is they claim that children were in police custody and gendarmerie custody are kept behind the desk of the police officers in good condition. It's almost saying that the police and gendarmerie office has become a daycare center for children who have committed crimes. Do you truly believe that in La République du Cameroun, the police and the gendarmes, they keep children, and I don't know how old these children would be, and they consider children by this time to be less than 18 years old. And for our purposes, 17-year-olds look like adults. The Republic doesn't care about their age. Can you imagine them that they keep them behind the police officer's desk and guard them like a daycare center? That's how La Republic gives their report. They describe an utopian society that is not what they live in. It's all falsehood. You can go on and on, but I just highlighted that. I will encourage people, you can Google these documents online and read it for yourself. You can have access to this information and read it for yourself. But as much as we have it, we will play it also over ABC
We'll
so that you
share.
can see it. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, over to health matters. We'll talk about diabetes and some other topic that Dr. Yaya wants to share.
Glucose, or sugar levels, are above normal in the blood. Most of the food we eat is turned into glucose that our bodies use for energy. The pancreas, an organ that lies near the stomach, makes a hormone called insulin that helps glucose get into the cells of our bodies. When you have diabetes, your body doesn't make enough insulin, or it can't use its own insulin as well as it should. This causes glucose to build up in your blood. There are several types of diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the body does not make insulin. In type 2 diabetes, the body does not use insulin well and may not make enough insulin. This is the most common form of diabetes. Gestational diabetes happens when a woman's body does not use insulin well while she is pregnant. It raises her risk for type 2 diabetes and raises her child's risk of getting diabetes. Diabetes is serious. Over time, high blood glucose levels may cause many health problems, including heart disease, blindness, kidney failure, and foot sores and amputations.
Dr. Yaya?
Yes, I was just trying to
Okay,
get some glucose.
I can see that. So we are on to you now. You saw the brief video on diabetes. So just tell our people what is diabetes in the layman's term, and go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mape, once again. Yeah, diabetes simply means you have high glucose levels in the bloodstream in your system. Now we have different units for different countries. Don't ask me which one means what. But anyway, when you wake up, what we call fasting sugar, your fasting blood sugar, um, because during sleep you're expected not to eat unless you're someone like me who eats anytime. But yes, after having fasted for 8 hours at least, doc, please help me. Your blood sugar, if it's above 129 or 125, there are different, slight variations depending on the different health system, but usually around the 129 milligram per deciliter, then you're considered to have diabetes. That is fasting glucose. There are other tests that can also be done to measure like the sort of long-term blood sugar, if we can just abbreviate it like that. They call it the HbA1c. If it's more than 6.5%, you're officially diagnosed with diabetes. And there are other tests that are usually done, especially in pregnancy. They call it the OGTT, oral glucose tolerance test. If after 2 hours that is more than 200 milligrams per deciliter, then you're diagnosed with diabetes. So long and short, it's diabetes simply means high blood sugar levels, and you can't know that unless you measure it, which is why it's important to see your doctor. But also there are signs and symptoms that could hint you. Doc, feel free to come in anytime. Did you want to say something?
No, I want to give you the opportunity to complete. No, I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. Speak.
Okay, all right. So it's a very huge topic. I'm not sure how much time we have. I wanted us to actually focus more on the symptoms because a lot of us don't really have out here. People have the glucometers where they can measure their blood glucose by themselves at home. But we're focusing, of course, hoping that this program is going to be of help to our people back home. They may not have this. I know some do, many do. But from signs and symptoms, you may kind of guess that there's a problem, and that will push you or make you to see your doctor quickly so that they can, test you.
Oh, it looked like she went.
My calling style. Oh God. Okay.
Go ahead.
So, talking about signs and symptoms. What are the common things? How does diabetes present itself? So I have a list here. There can be very, very general symptoms that you have with other things, especially type 2. Like I said, we won't go into the details of type 1, type 2. We're just dealing with, overall diabetes. And we can talk about the subtypes and their specificities later on. But most often, the commoner type is the type 2, which occurs mainly in older persons, in elderly people. And the symptoms are not as acute as you have them with the type 1. Which is really drastic, whereby you can have a young person actually having extreme thirst, extreme urination, what we call polyuria, and polydipsia, that's excessive thirst, and which may lead actually to severe dehydration. And so they come in with extreme weight loss and derangement in their electrolytes and really serious metabolic complications. But that's that other subgroup. So generally you have tiredness, you have like blurred vision, just feeling a bit foggy in your head, and also was ist Leistungsminderung, Doc, of English. Your performance level is, you're just weak, you're just chronically tired. What are the other things I jotted down? So you have Naigung, a tendency to have recurrent infections. Okay, recurrent infections like urinary tract infections, pneumonia, skin infections, candida or fungal infections. It could be in the mouth, it could be in the vagina or in the private parts, or also like for big or fat people. Sorry, how do I describe fat people? That's very mean. Anyway, people with a lot of folds, obvious, yeah. Like under their skin, where they have a lot of skin, skin folds, like under the breast and also in the
around the armpits and the groin area where you sweat easily.
Armpits, and the groin, where you easily have moisture. And so it's important that, anyway, we're still back on the symptoms. So these are the things that should make you think about, going to see the doctor and getting checked. So just a summary again: tiredness, excessive urination, and excessive thirst, weight loss, fogginess in your head. Sometimes people can have itches, and what else? What have I left out? And yeah, the skin, the tendency to having this common infections in the bladder, private parts, and also skin infections and weight loss. So generally, those would be the common symptoms. And Doc, please feel free to just interrupt. No formalities. And then what I wanted us to really focus more about today, because I know we don't really have a lot of time. How do we manage this? Because I know sometimes there's a lot of information for the patient, and they're like, okay, so what do I need to do about this? Why do we bother really about diabetes? Because people who have diabetes don't really have, apart from this, like I said, I could just feel that, oh, maybe I'm tired, I've not slept well, that's why I'm feeling tired and all that. So some of the symptoms, especially for type 2, can be very subtle,
General.
meaning they can be caused by different, exactly, they can be caused by different things. So what do I do with this information? So the first thing is see your doctor so that they can do the blood test, and it's a finger prick, and they can tell what your blood sugar is, and the diagnosis is easily made, especially with the fasting or with the long term blood sugar measurement. And then what does that mean to you? What is the to the patient? And I must say diabetes is very common. I'm sure everybody knows somebody who has diabetes. The prevalence is rising, especially the type 2, because of the lifestyle that we live, sedentary lifestyle, and the foods we eat and all of that stuff. Even though there are genetic components, there's also a genetic component, but lifestyle certainly plays a big role, particularly for type 2 diabetes. And so in terms of the therapy, so now when you're told that you have diabetes, what do you do? It is not a death sentence, but on the other hand, it should be taken seriously. I think because people don't really feel pain, they don't feel something. Let me say a heart attack, you would have a sharp pain in your chest that would definitely, push you to see a doctor. But with diabetes, people could just say, oh, yeah, I didn't sleep well, therefore I'm tired as a result of that. Once that diagnosis is made, because you don't really have some strong symptoms, please don't take it for granted, because diabetes does have complications, early as well as late complications. And they are not necessarily dramatic until something really bad happens, and it might be already too late. So it's a progressive disease. Just to summarize, the constant, persistent high blood sugars, and I think that was very well explained in the video. I didn't want to explain again. Why we end up with high blood sugar, because insulin, which is the hormone that actually helps to take the blood sugar, the glucose, into the cells where it's supposed to be used, is not there for different reasons. In type 1, it is usually that they can't produce insulin for whatever reason. For the type 2s, they may produce some insulin, or their system is not able to use up insulin. For whatever reason, the blood sugar is high. So now what do we do? Your first, as a patient, your aim is to try and control that blood sugar to keep it within the normal range, so that we don't overshoot, which is too high, and called hyperglycemia, or too low, which is called hypoglycemia. So low and high. And all of these two complications can actually lead to a coma. But talking about which one is more dangerous, the low blood sugar, the hypoglycemia, is more dangerous, because if you are in that state for, I'm not sure how long, I think maybe 5 minutes, I'm not sure, it does cause, the brain doesn't get food, and then you can have brain damage and lots of and death, actually, death.
We have to start. We have to start summarizing and ending, because you still have to talk briefly about infiltration briefly. But,
okay.
Let me say this before you continue, Dr. Yaya. I just want to remind people, because those who are watching at home, our people back home, they may not really know exactly what to look for. So there are some 10 things that they should look for and then get checked. There's if they're peeing a lot, urinating a lot, that's one possible sign, right? If they are very thirsty, that's another possible sign. If they lose weight without really trying to lose weight, that's number 3. If they're also very hungry, people just suddenly becoming hungry, they have blurred vision, or
I
they
see.
have numbness in their and tingling in their feet. They feel very tired. They have very dry skin. They have wounds that do not heal quickly. They heal slowly. And you already mentioned they always have infections. So those are some 10 things that people should watch out if they are at home and they don't know if they have diabetes. That could be a sign right there that something is awry.
Right.
So, Doc,
Right.
I want you to
The only
complete on the
few
diabetes,
things,
and then
the few things,
let's talk about
the few
infiltration quickly.
the few things that I would like to add for our people in Cameroon. Remember, the people back at home, they drink a lot of alcohol, and alcohol destroys the
Oh.
pancreas and leads to diabetes. Okay, and also our people think that the fatter you are when you have become a big man, and then you eat and drink a lot and you become very fat, then you means you are enjoying life. That's not true. So the more weight you accumulate, aside from your natural weight, there is the genetic predisposition to have your natural weight. That one is not your fault. But if you consume more than your body needs and your body can metabolize, then you will start storing it in your liver, for example. Those people now start getting big. And also, when you drink a lot of alcohol, some of the alcohol will be converted and stored in your liver, which eventually destroys your liver and also destroys the pancreas, and then eventually leads to diabetes. So we've realized that in what they call third world nations, as people start becoming wealthy, they they exaggerate in how much they consume, and then they develop diabetes, type 2 diabetes and other things like that. So our people need to be careful with that. It's not true that when you are fat or you drink a lot and eat a lot, you're enjoying life. You may be shortening your lifespan. Mhm.
Very, very, very good point, Doc. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll just rush through the therapy, and I'm just going to
Doc,
pay
can we
attention
keep
more,
therapy for
not
next?
on the medicinal.
Can we talk about therapy next time?
Oh,
Because this November is
it's
really
more
diabetes
lifestyle
month.
changes.
Mhm.
Let's keep it for next time.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. So what should we talk? What about complications? Do we have time then for that?
No, because there's a show coming
Or
up
want to go to
soon.
the next
The
topic? Ah, okay.
awakening is coming up soon. So let's just talk briefly about infiltration, so that
Okay. Okay. Good.
people should,
Good.
yeah.
How many minutes do we have? Because I need to
About
do a little bit of research on that.
6 minutes, 6 7 minutes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. This is not really my forte. The reason we're talking about this is because, of course, we've witnessed in a struggle lately some instability, so to say, or attempted instability, and I'm not sure. People have the right to question, and especially if you don't understand something. But I just thought maybe we should just revise this and see what the pattern has been of the enemy that we're dealing with. Because sometimes we can be living in ignorance and we just believe, and we can be manipulated in thinking that, oh, yeah, all of this is right. And we're not saying that asking questions is wrong, but in what context and with what intention? And so we need to look at that. So I just looked at how La République has played, the relationship La République has had with us, the Southern Cameroons, and how infiltration has always been their modus operandi from start. Okay, but my little summary just goes as far back as 2017, which means since the start of this part of the struggle, not the initial, because there's still a long story. I'm sure Dr. Lobati has always or has talked on that before. How whatever the failed union, how that existed or how that was actually structured. Anyway, we're going as far back as 2017 when our struggle became evolved into what it is, and we had our first president, Siseko Ayutabe. So we see that even then, La République, when he was made, did we call? Yeah, the president. I don't think La République has
It
ever
was
called
called
him president
interim president.
of the Ambazonian struggle.
Yeah, interim
Or
president.
interim president, yes. We've never ever given him that appellation, But once he became compromised, or however we want to say it, once he came under their custody and they had the opportunity to talk to him, and whatever exchanges took place, they started calling him the leader of the separatist movement. So the reason I tried to do a bit of research and talk to people who are versed with these things, that they can't. La Republique. Sorry, I'm just jumping. I will be jumping from one point to another because I took notes. The reason La Republique, for example, can't come to the table, like in the Swiss-led process, it's not because they don't necessarily want to. What they don't want is to have that name government. They don't want to sit with us as par on par, on the same level as government versus government. So what they are doing, or they are still struggling to do, is to dismantle this government and get us possibly, in a secret meeting, not negotiated, well, without third parties, in a secret meeting, with so-called leaders or opposition groups, so that we'll come there in little factions and probably be scratching our heads against each other, and they will stand out, like the big brother trying to calm the fire, like the fire extinguisher, and probably giving us some piecemeal at the end, because we cannot come to any agreement. So I'm just trying to say this so that we understand why, people, patriots are really fighting hard to make sure that this government stands, because that's the intention of La République, to actually dismantle this government. And that's why we see time and again other comrades from pressure groups or whatever, they've been invited to be part of the mainstream, and they would refuse. They want to keep their names or their autonomy, whatever. But after, every cycle, every now and then they'll come back to say, we want peace and unity, we want collaboration and this and that. So a government is a collaborative platform, the best of my knowledge. You can join. You can join your counties, you can join your LGAs. So why don't you do that? But the point is that they have been assigned, some of them knowingly, some not knowingly, to make sure that they destroy the structure. And that's why we see that, would I say, our other brothers and sisters in the struggle fiercely fighting to destabilize this government. And that is really the beef. So the moment La République succeeds to destabilize this government, they are probably going to sit with the broken pieces and discuss, because they are going to come out as the stronger arm, because they are not coming as CPDM. There's only one CPDM anyway. They are not coming as different parties, but they are trying to make us come as different parties. But we have a government that is above any other faction, and that must be made known to our people, especially those who are in this government and are kind of being recalcitrant. They may be talking out of ignorance, but they should actually look at the pattern of La République. So there are different types of infiltration. There's the direct infiltration, whereby La République actually contacts somebody and contracts them to do something. I believe someone like Chris Anu was directly contacted, given money or whatever, promised something to deliver, and his delivery was to break down this government so that we come down to their little groups. And that's why they are very happy in talking about their 5 IGs. When there was one IG, they never mentioned, they didn't talk about this IG. They didn't even take note. So, but then they are very happy to propagate the 5 or 4 or whatever they call. But thank God we have a government that cannot be replicated. So that's one thing. So you have direct infiltration, and then you have those that are infiltrated by association. And these are people who are just loyal to that person who knows what is going on, but they don't know. But because they are just a blind follower of this person, they deliver all their services in all loyalty, but you are infiltrated by association. And only with time you get to know that, because you can see a lot of people are coming out and saying, oh, we're surprised, Chris lied to us. He promised this, it didn't happen. He said he will bring the deal. He said he will bring how many billion donors and all those things. Nothing happened. So with time, they develop how much of a fool they have been. But because of pride, some can't really turn back and say, look, I took the wrong direction. I want to get back. But we welcome them. If they are actually honest, they can still go back and be vetted through their LGAs and counties, and they can join the struggle again. Now, there's another type of, okay, like the Chris Anus, they are contracted to actually buy over our fighters on the ground, and also to destabilize the leadership in the diaspora, which they tried. And part of the goal is also to actually cause huge divisions between the northern zone and the southern zone, to continue to play with the narrative that, oh, the Bamenda man is always going to trick you, they like power, they like to do this. And that's why you see most coup plotters are from the northern zone, sorry to say. And we should be smart, dear coup plotters. There's a history of that, the Muna Trail and all of that. It's still in the minds of our brothers from the southern zone. So even if you want to be smart and do coup plotting, you're better off having someone from the southern zone and not the northern zone, because I myself am suspicious of us. Sorry to say, because there's a history. Sorry, am I okay on time? We might also
You're
need to
okay,
carry on
just
the
yes.
next program with
It's
this.
exciting. Go ahead,
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, then the other type is like after they've tried with Chris did his best to actually kill, destroy a lot of our great fighters on the ground. And they do that either by killing them directly or indirectly, or by making them lay down their arms and give up fighting. Like the great field marshal, God knows, but Chris alone knows. Is he dead? Is he just been pulled somewhere to retreat? But they've done this kind of thing to a lot of fighters. Even No PT, when No PT started, he was a great fighter, But through this infiltration, through Chris Anu, because his voice was already the so-called the voice of the people, it was difficult for people not to trust that he's doing the right thing. So a lot of followers just went with that euphoria of, yesteryears. But unfortunately, the man had received an envelope and he was on a different mission. And he killed great fighters like that. We have another one, Akoro of Santa. You have many of them. And the formation of the so-called Bui warriors was, that almost
Unity
really
Warriors.
deleted the entire Bui. Unity warriors, whatever. I don't know what they were uniting, because we are already united in our purpose. So these are like key infiltrators that you see from the actions, and Then there's the subtle one, whereby you are infiltrated unconsciously. Somebody from life, and they play into your ego. They use somebody who is close to you to be feeding your ego with all these praise worship songs. Oh, ma or pa, this, you are the best. If not of you, this revolution will not survive. You are the pillar of this thing. If you do this thing will fall. And when they do this, people, unstable minds or weak people, would buy into this, and you start to believe, start to get manic, thinking that a whole revolution really depends on only your shoulders. And then you start to behave erratically, and you're threatening the system, because you've been made to believe that without you, the system can't work. So those who have thought this way, they've also had their face really slapped against the wall, because you've been absent for 1 or 2 years. The revolution is still going. So nobody's indispensable. But so we have those that actually get the money and they have the contract to deliver, and those that are actually plowed into this route of making you feel that you are the Superman or Superwoman, and you start to grow horns, disengaging from the struggle, exposing the government, especially if you have sensitive material. You go sharing sensitive government material because you want to threaten the government to succumb to your demands or your commands. And that hasn't worked. And the struggle is still moving, without you, And again, everybody has their own following. So before those followers, the blind followers, know it is 1 year late, and some would hide out of shame and stay there. But we still welcome you to come back. No one is, we're not perfect, and there's always room for correction. Now, the other tactic is the infiltration through the activists. Again, that goes to with this trick of using the northern zone, southern zone divide. They actually infiltrated the activists from the southern zone. I hate to be calling names, but people like Nanchop, Zaleh, Clovis, where are they today? All of them have just gone quiet. They have all gone quiet because they want to finally end up with that narrative that, oh, these people, they are just deceiving you, and these Bamenda people, they like power and so on. At the end of the day, they will try to topple you, and you would have just leave the whole thing. That's another one. Now, so today, what is their tactic? They are selecting people amongst us to actually, because they've tried all these different things. It did shake us up, especially the Chris Anuku, Now, what they are trying is provocation, sending these people, whether they know it, some will know. There's a master planner who knows, but then he has some errand boys and girls who actually deliver without actually knowing that they're doing that. They'll fool you. They say, "Oh, you look very brave. You can stand. You can talk in those. You can just slap them in their eyes. You can shout at the president, ask him any questions, disgrace him." Okay, and they know that these things are being recorded on the Zoom meetings, and they send these kind of people. They go do their business to completely distract us, with this constant, perpetual questions that even when they are answered, are never really accepted as okay. It's okay to ask questions, but the point is, what is the priority at this point in time, especially after a very successful October 1, delivery by our ASAs. My goodness, when I look at those pictures, I'm like, we've come a long way. And then we had the successful transition fund draft immediately after, and all of a sudden, a topic that it's not really do or die. I'm not saying that things could not be looked into, but we always have to look at the timing. So to me, that timing was very diabolical. We were in a place where, the momentum was going up again, just like in 2021, before the coup came. And they're always if we are saying this, it's not to call names or whatever, and it's to really pick our minds and our consciences. Sometimes we may be doing things ignorantly. Let's look at the trend. Why would we be doing so well, and we're starting to pick up momentum, and then you bring us back with something that can be handled even later? And yet you've had explanations, or you have experts on this topic in the House that you can actually call. You can't be a government official and you leave your government office, instead of addressing a serious issue, you go and put it in the marketplace, and then you come back to say you are a patriot. To me, I see infiltration there. Those are subtle signs of someone who's been infiltrated without even knowing. And then the other form of infiltration is people who have deserted their offices. Secretaries of states who do not attend meetings. You don't see them in any draft or any government event, be it conferences or whatever. They are completely absent, right? You call, they don't pick up their phones. You invite them to join groups. I mean, it's not just common groups. It is working groups. It is office space, and they refuse to join. What does that mean? And yet you refuse to resign. So what are you doing? Are you a placeholder? Who are you holding the place for? Because you're stagnating the struggle. The same applies for those chairs and LGA chairs, county chairs, who are sitting there just having a nice time till the next draft. That is not all. Please. So we have to look at this. If you know that you've served Amazonia, and we appreciate what you have done, and you're tired, it is better you do the honorable thing to say, please, I want to take a sabbatical, or I have family challenges or work or whatever, or health, or that I am tired, and hand the baton to somebody who is who wants to work, instead of staying there, blocking space, and then things are not moving. So that's another kind of infiltration, actually resigning from your work, surrendering. It's not even surrender, actually being an absentee official, and yet you cannot resign. So I think the president had made that invitation. If you're tired, and again, if you are constantly at loggerheads with the principles or the policies of the government, and you've tried to reason, with the leadership, and you don't think that things are going the right way, and it's really not something that is, what do you say, in line with your beliefs, I think it's honorable to step down. Please step down rather than stay there, and you're just causing what do you call, confrontations upon confrontations, and that is distracting us from the main goal. Look at the conference we
Okay.
had. I mean, with all the noise that, yeah, there was a lot of distraction, and so I'm just, it's just for us to look at ourselves and actually ask, why do I fall here? Could I be a victim of this infiltration without knowing? And when we say coup plotters, it's just a general term. Okay, there are different degrees of it, as we have tried to list. There are those who really know they've been given a job to do, and then there are the followers, and there are those that are simply victims by association. So judge your environment. There are some good audios by, I think, Pastor Evans, talking about this infiltration and all of that. You must reassess people. The person, maybe the me you knew 5-7 years ago is no longer the same me today, and that's true, because I was a quiet girl, but now I'm wild. I can tell you that, and no one can stop me. Yes, because I've invested 7 years of my life in this struggle, and I don't want anybody to delay my going to Buya. So reassess
Absolutely.
your relationships. Ask where people are at today, not yesterday. And that's why
I
it
have,
is irrelevant. In as much as we are grateful, it's irrelevant to come and say, I paid 20,000 for whatever my trip to Boya in 2017. That is not what patriots do. You have to finish the job. So you did that. Everybody did something. So should we stop now? And if we stop, what happens? We've lost. And can we bring back
well,
those
I have
souls?
someone who
So
wants to
look at where you
contribute.
fall on this infiltration list. I'm sure. Okay. I'll stop talking.
No, no, you've been wonderful. You've been fantastic. Let me put the speaker on the phone. Okay, I think you're on air now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Patience. I'm not sure it is a speaker that is unknown. It's a regular voice, but I think I will be very interested to participate in this conversation that has to do with infiltration. It is a sad thing. It is a very workable strategy. In fact, I would say it's a very successful strategy of La République du Cameroun to crumble our struggle. Why? Because over and over again, they have done it, and we've had those that we had esteem for behave very strangely. But even though we overcome some of the storm, I think our people generally and government officials particularly need to self-educate themselves. You cannot, it is unacceptable, it is unheard of, it is a clear manifestation of primitivity for a government official to make certain utterances in public about leadership, about policy, about constitution. And it's even sad when they want to employ democracy in their arguments. Let's compare, for instance, in the United States of America. You cannot be a cabinet member of a Biden's administration and make a public, it is part of your agreement, and make a public utterance that places you at variance with a cabinet policy. That is considered by the US law treason. You cannot be an important person, for instance, a Speaker of Congress, for instance, a high-level official. Let's say in our government, we have the Speaker of the House, we have the President of the Executive, which is the Commander-in-Chief of the government, we have the Vice President, we have the Chairperson of the Ethics, we have the Chairperson of the Judiciary. These are levels of offices that even if you are in disagreement with any government policy or law or process or protocol, it is incumbent upon you to stay publicly neutral when there is an argument, number one. Number two, it is incumbent upon you to stay mute. If you must talk, like Dr. Yaya was explaining, it's not something we have to sugarcoat. You have in your office the allowance to convene emergency meetings, because all of these offices, not just the president can call meetings. The president calls high-level meetings where he invites everyone. But if there is an emergency, the Speaker of the House can call a meeting, an intergovernmental meeting, who can write intergovernmental petitions to present concerns. The chairperson of any of the arms of government, even as a county chair. So we need to, that's why I'm saying this in conclusion to say that as government officials, it's true some of us have not even gone to school. Some of us, if we have to employ Ambazonians that are intellectual enough, you will not be a cabinet member or a government official at a certain level. Mm-hmm. But because what is needed at this phase of our movement is not the certificates that you have, but the willingness and availability that you have, which is priceless, which we applaud and appreciate. You cannot do a disservice to yourself and to the government not to educate yourself on the basic requirements that are needed in your office. And what some people need to know is there are certain levels of government when you cross at that level of office. An activist can say any nonsense they want to say. We've seen a couple of them. I don't want to call names. But if you are a top government official, you take a serious position publicly, and it ends out that you are wrong, the least that is required from you is to self-resign, or you are dismissed if you were appointed, or you are impeached. If you have a position, for instance, if the president publicly does something against the people or the government of Ambazonia as a majority, at the end of the day, it's discovered that the president is wrong, he has to resign, to be impeached by our laws. If the Speaker of the House or the chair of the Ethics Commission or even the judiciary, if they do something that is at variance with government documented policy and law, and it turns out that they were wrong, they cannot just apologize like any other Ambazonians. They will apologize and stay within government, but they will have to resign. So let us understand some of these things. If you're a cabinet member that has acted treasonously, you are supposed to be resigned or be dismissed, because the president has a right to dismiss you. There are certain offices that probably he cannot dismiss. But these individuals, we can enact the laws of the land to have them impeached. I am saying so on a very serious note. As the director of the news of ABC, there are things I don't agree. Dr. Yaya knows that. The president knows that. I'm saying this, Amazonians are listening. There are things that the government does that I don't agree. But I execute them and I report them until effectively, stricto sensu, as per government policy, because that is basic requirement for leadership and for governance. Now, if the president tells you people the number of things that I have written to him personally that I did not like, a lot of Ambazonians will be surprised. If, in fact, Dr. Yaya tells you some, you'll be very surprised. There are many things that the government has done that I, as an individual, I don't want it. But Ambazonians want it. I have a duty to represent it, or I leave it. The only option I have is to do it or I don't do it. So I just thought that this is important for us to clear the air, and then to conclude by telling our people at the home front that we have a competent institutional framework. And these pilot structures, we are managing the situation. They should not be worried. We have the right persons in place to do the right things. The most important thing that should console them is that as of this moment that we speak, we have a president that has not been compromised, and that is still passionate for the absolute, complete freedom of the people of Ambazonia.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for your input, Director Paddy. Thank you so much. We're going to be ending the program soon. Doc, you want to say anything, Dr. Lobati?
Well, it just comes out of the playbook of the devil and La République de Cameroun and the French. That is their modus operandi. They divide to control and they infiltrate to destroy the group they are afraid of the most. In fact, you can do a program going right far back to the 1940s, how the French have used this method to destroy.
Yeah, can you hear Dr. Fred speaking, Dr. Yaya?
Mape, can you hear me?
I hear
Yes,
you,
I can
but
hear you.
Dr. Fred was speaking. You can't hear him.
Oh, she turned her face the other way. But whatever the case, what I'm trying to say is that you can actually do a separate program about the tactics that the French and by extension La République have used throughout
Yes, I
uh,
can hear.
from the
I don't know if
1940s to today to
I think he can
divide
speak. Yes, hear you
and
now, Doc.
control the population and then infiltrate and destroy the most potent elements that they were afraid of. You can pick several examples, like even when you had the SDF and Frundi was still the real Frundi, they infiltrated him, they divided it and brought Ben Munas and brought other people who said they were more educated and tried to take it away from him. And then they couldn't succeed. Then they brought in the Kawala and broke away to different parties. And eventually they succeeded to buy the Frundi, and Frundi was now dancing with them in Yaoundé with the Gagwa owners, and then they killed him. Yeah, I said they killed Frundi. Okay, so I'm not I'm not just uttering some words. I know what I'm talking about. So they divide to control, infiltrate to destroy the groups that they are afraid of in order to destroy. They have done the same within the Amazonian struggle. They have bought off people, even the Naira 10 that they carried to the jail. They talk to them every day, try to convince them to change their minds and be bought off, and they have succeeded to buy some off, and they're having difficulties buying all of them off. Even the people that were involved in the coup d'etat when Ahijo left government to Biya, they locked. Niad Njefenji was in jail, maltreated in front of his wife. This Isa Chiruma Bakari was in jail, all those guys. But when they were in jail, they talked to them, convinced them, brought their consciences off, and then brought them up and are using them. So they are doing the same. They have brought people around us, and the people that they are afraid of the most, those are the ones they infiltrate. So remember, the tree, the fruit on the tree that is looking ripe and the sweetest gets the most stones. So La Republic does not care about the other people because they have already bought them in their pockets. So that's why they are focusing on this. But what I want our people to know is that their efforts have already failed. They will not succeed.
Yes.
It does not matter what they do. You can see since our revolution started, what are the different strategies that Biya has brought? He brought the multiculturalism and bilingualism, disarmament and this and that, high sounding words that they go and cook in their secret societies and come and deceive us with those high
Special
sounding words.
status.
They have never succeeded. So even these two will not succeed. Even if they attempt not to die, they will still die. So don't worry about it. Our efforts will prevail and will succeed. All those people that are either knowingly or unknowingly being used and they have an intention to destroy, don't worry about them, they will not succeed.
Thank you. Dr. Yaya, your closing remarks on this?
Yeah, I think I forgot 2 points. The other class, of infiltration. One example of the direct infiltration was, you had, for example, Christensia Asson.
Awesome.
She was apparently given a Zoom link from Yaoundé that could contain as many people, and she organized this group. I was part of it, where they came and were preaching peace and love. And when you ask them a simple question, they would insult you so heavily, and then they kick you out. So, and people fell for it. Oh wow, oh peace, we should all reconcile. And these are the innocent ones who then discovered a few months down the line that they were being used again. And then the last group that they are really selecting in our struggle right now within the ranks of this interim government is another class of people who are not really smart. I'm someone who respects every individual. Okay, I don't care about what do I mean by I don't care. It's not to denigrate anyone, but when you look at the way they talk, they articulate their arguments. There's something in common with them. Some of them have defined themselves as the nine. They said it with their own mouth, so we didn't say that. I won't call names. But yeah, it sounds to me like Naira 9 plus one addition. They seem to be not so smart, not intelligent people, thinking very shallow and kind of confused in their arguments, but yet so arrogant, believing that they understand what they're doing. So my advice to them is please seek specialist advice if you're not sure about what constitutional matters comprise of or how laws are made. We have the attorney general, we have a judiciary system, we have the legislative arm of government, we have the speaker of the house. You can give them a call and let them explain things to you instead of you building your own cobwebs in your head. So on that note, I just want to thank everybody and remind them that we're moving forward, and from now on we'll be focusing on the positives. I think this infiltration and coup plotting has really been punctured. If they don't believe that, they are truly dead. That's what I believe, and so we should, moving forward into December with new, fresh spirit. And we have the transition fund drive tomorrow, which again is in plan, a fundraiser to prepare us for takeover of our territory, because nation building entails money. We wouldn't go into details, but we can imagine what it takes to build a nation. So please come tomorrow, Saturday, the 23rd of November at 8 p.m. Amber time, and let's sit together and do what is honorable for Ambazonia, raise funds, and prepare to go to Boya. Thank you, and it was a pleasure being with you, Dr. Lobati and Mape on the horizon. Goodbye, everybody. Stay healthy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for being on the horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. We've covered about 4 topics today. We talked about how La Republique was grilled by the UN Commission Against Torture, and you heard for yourself how dishonest they are in terms of what they said and what they are doing. We talked about briefly about diabetes, our health corner, which we will continue on this month. This month is November is Diabetes Month in the United States of America. We talked about the recent meeting in Washington, D.C. By our government, and we talked about infiltration. As we conclude, I just want to add my voice to this topic. I would say that right now, in our quest, there are some individuals who have really been infiltrated and they're doing the work of La Republique. That is a given. There are some individuals who are tired. They want to quit. And because they want to quit, they're trying to take down the plane with them. They want to take down the ship with them. They want to take down the train with them. So some individuals are doing just that. And there are some individuals that are naive, that are being fed falsehood. And based on the falsehood, they really believe that they are standing true for Ambazonia, that they are right and the rest of us are wrong. So based on these 3 groups of people, we need to be able to discern how we make how we keep our friendships. We need to be able to realize that to be focused, you need to let go of certain friendships if your goal is to go to Boya. Absolutely. Friendships or family members that are derailing you, you need to say bye-bye. And if you know for sure certain things that they are doing that are detrimental, call it out. So with that said, we keep on praying for those that are at home front, that are suffering the brunt of this war, because we are staying in our own comfort zone. We don't really see the day-to-day torture problems that our people are going through. We're only praying that with the leadership that we have, if we are truthful and honest, we'll be focused behind this. In fact, there are other things coming up as joining certain groups for unity. Dr. Yaya said the simplest way to acquire unity is for people to genuinely join their LGAs and counties and work through those levels. If you do that, then unity will be accomplished in an instant. So I want to thank you all for being on the horizon. I hope you learned a thing or two. Until we meet again, have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.
De la torture et comment documenter efficacement la torture. Je passe maintenant aux articles 12 et 13 sur l'enquête rapide et impartiale et protection des victimes. Dans son discours d'ouverture, M. l'ambassadeur a dit « Les enquêtes sont ouvertes. Les mesures disciplinaires conservatoires prononcées dans l'attente de l'issue des procédures judiciaires. Mr. President, I'll switch to English now. Let me address this matter by making reference to a few high-profile cases. First, the killing of Cameroonian radio journalist Mr. Martinez Sogo. Mr. Sogo revealed details of financial scandals implicating members of the government and allied businessmen. As I'm sure the delegation knows, in January of 2023, his body was found days after being abducted. Media reports indicate that Mr. Zogo's body was wrapped in aluminum foil and was taken by night when no one could see to a vacant lot with the aim of using acid to destroy it. These reports indicate that more than 6 months after Zogo's death, the 15 men imprisoned suspects who have been held since February are charged only with complicity in torture. The reports indicate, quote, that this smells of a fix, according to a security source. Another source, who allegedly has had access to the case file, said that this was, quote, inexplicable. People close to the case, according to media reports, are beginning to doubt the judicial investigation's sincerity, and some point to the absence of certain evidence which has disappeared or was never included in the case file. The committee has received concerning reports about journalists' lack of safety in Cameroon. Reports indicate that Paul Chuta, a reporter from Cameroun Web, was forced into a car, given a severe beating, and left for dead at the side of a road on 9 March of 2022, 2 days after he posted a photo on Facebook showing the finance minister and a prominent businessman who allegedly was involved in the killing of Martinez Zogo. In another recent case, Ramon Cota, a social media activist, was apparently kidnapped in Gabon on 17 July 2024 and forcibly extradited to Yaoundé. Mr. Cota's lawyer and international human rights organizations state that Mr. Cota was subject to torture. Mr. Cota has been living in Gabon for the past 10 years and is known for his TikTok videos in which he criticizes Cameroonian authorities. We understand that Mr. Cota is currently in a cell at the Secrétariat d'État de la Défense, a prison where those deemed to be holding state secrets and therefore are a threat to the government are held, awaiting trial. We also understand that he has been placed under a 6-month provisional detention order. Reports indicate that Mr. Cota was interrogated several times without a lawyer present, both at the Direction Générale de la Recherche Extérieure and 4 times at the Service Central de Recherche Judiciaire. According to a confidential report reported in the media, Mr. Cota suffered from early paralysis on the left side and visual disturbances as a result of torture and mistreatment during his detention. In another case, a recent case of singer Longuet Longuet, an artist who is also known for his critical views on the government, a video of Cameroonian officers torturing him emerged. In the video, Longue's hands are cuffed behind his back. He is sitting on the floor in his underwear as the soles of his bare feet are beaten with a flat machete. He pleads for the beating to stop, but the men who appear to be security agents continue. Can the delegation please specify the status of these investigations of these different cases? In the specific case of Mr. Zogo's killing, and as noted under Article 1 of the Convention, please provide additional information on the mitigating factors that downgrade the crime of torture to a charge of complicity in torture. Could the delegation specify the charges under which Mr. Kote is being held, particularly as he was not in Cameroon when he was arrested by authorities in Gabon? Have any investigations into ill treatment or torture being initiated? In the case of artist Longue, have any investigations being initiated? As indicated in Cameroon's Human Rights Commission's website, the Commission wrote to the Minister Delegate at the Presidency of the Republic in charge of defense to ensure that the results of the investigation opened by him in the case of Longue be known before 13 November of 2024, that is today. Could the delegation please share the specific findings on those responsible for the ill treatment and torture that is visible for the world to see? In light of the committee's previous concluding observations and the information provided in the State Party's periodic report, paragraphs 126 through 128, the committee remains concerned about the ambiguity of the accountability measures relating to the cases of involving Cameroon police, gendarmes, and specifically in the cases of Buba Yauba, David Edmond Gumpung Gunitiche, Abu Bakari Siddiqui, and Abdoulaye Harisu, Blaise Elem Koang Yepo, and Wirba Didimus Soseka. We ask the delegation to please specify the status of these investigations into these different cases. With regard to the arbitrary detention and death in custody of Boko Haram suspects, which led to 9 investigations opened in 2018, please specify what sanctions were imposed on the 13 police officers, how many officers in total were sanctioned, and whether criminal investigations have been opened or will be opened, and when they are expected to be completed. This is in reference to paragraph 18 of the committee's concluding observation, previous concluding observations. Please specify what sanctions were imposed on prison staff in 2017, how many people were sanctioned, and whether criminal investigations have been or will be opened, and when the state expects them to be concluded. This is in relation to paragraph 128 of the State Party's report. Please provide detailed statistics on the number of cases dismissed and the number of cases still pending. In the light of its previous concluding observations, the committee requests information on programs for the protection of witnesses and victims of torture. Under what mechanisms and programs are witnesses and victims currently protected? When does the State Party expect protection programs to be fully operational in accordance with the National Action Plan for the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights in Cameroon? I move to Article 15, inadmissibility of statements obtained under torture. Under Article 15 of the Convention, the use of any statement obtained under torture or resulting from torture is prohibited in any proceedings. The committee, in its list of issues prior to submission, paragraph 24, requested information on the measures used to ensure compliance with the exclusionary rule. The committee is concerned that the state party is unable to provide more than one case where evidence obtained under duress has been excluded. Furthermore, the committee is concerned that under the state party's Code of Criminal Procedure, only confessions obtained under torture are prohibited, whereas Article 15 of the Convention requires that all statements obtained under torture be prohibited. Does the state party recognize that Article 15 of the Convention prohibits the admission as evidence of all statements, not just confessions obtained under torture? When will the state party amend its penal code to reflect this provision? What is the standard of proof used by the courts or administrative staff to determine whether confessions have been obtained under torture? What criteria do the courts use to determine coercion, violence, or intimidation with regard to extorted confessions? Please provide statistics on the number of cases in which the exclusion rule was applied during the reporting period. How is compliance with Article 15 of the Convention monitored? Does the admission of evidence obtained by torture constitute grounds for appeal in any judicial or administrative proceedings? Please provide data on appeals based on information derived from torture, including the number of appeals accepted and rejected. Are decisions reversible on appeal if it is established that evidence falling under the exclusion rule has been used in court or in administrative proceedings? With regard to capacity building sessions for judges, why were criminal judges not included? Does the state party have any other methods of training criminal judges? In the case of John Phai Phuong Gong, a victim of torture inflicted by state agents, as shown, once again, in a video published on social media in February of 2021, which state authorities strongly condemned at the time. Can the state provide information on the results of investigations? Have those responsible for acts of torture in this case been convicted? If so, to what penalties? I finally move, Mr. President, to Article 16, prevention of other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. The committee welcomes the state party's new community policing system, which consists of toll-free numbers for reporting human rights violations. However, the committee is concerned about the effectiveness of this system for reporting allegations of torture against state party officials. The committee notes that the state party deploys defense and security forces after a violation has been reported through the hotlines. How does the state party guarantee independent and fair investigations into allegations against state employees when state employees are conducting the investigations? Please provide statistical data on the number of people who have used the community policing figures since its implementation, the number of people who have been investigated under this system, and on the number of people who have been prosecuted and or punished. I would like to refer to the issue of mass graves. In the list of issues prior to reporting, the committee asked whether the state party had begun the process of exhumation, analysis, and identification of the bodies in the alleged mass graves, including a mass grave at Mindif. In its sixth periodic report, the state party denied any knowledge of such mass graves. The committee remains concerned by reports of mass graves in the Republic, particularly after the state party's military officials located a mass grave in Yaoundé in 2023. Please indicate the measures taken by the state party to investigate allegations of mass graves, particularly in Mindif. Please explain the systems in place to enable civilians to report suspected mass graves for investigation by the state party. Please indicate whether the state party would exhume, analyze, and identify bodies at the site of a mass grave if its investigation revealed the presence of a mass grave. Finally, in the list of issues prior to reporting, the committee requested data on a long list of cases. The state party provided information on some of these cases in its 6th periodic report. Therefore, the committee reiterates its request for data for the period since 2017, disaggregated by type of offense and gender, age group, and ethnic or regional origin of the victim for these cases. Please also share any individual information on the progress of these cases. This is referring to paragraphs 165 through 176 of the committee's concluding observations under the 5th periodic report. In particular, and I close with this, Mr. President, the events, and apologies for my mispronunciation, events in Ngarbu in February of 2020, events concerning the looting, burning of villages, and murders of English-speaking civilians allegedly perpetrated by the army, particularly in Babukok, Banjem, and Do in January 2020, and in the villages of Kwakwa, Dadi, Kajifu, and Bodam in December of 2017. Concerning the murder of 10 men in the village of Bole Bakundu on February 6, 2019, by soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion. On the murder of 5 civilians, including a disabled person, on April 4 of 2019, in the village of Melouf by gendarmes and soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion. Concerning the murder of a man and the destruction of houses in the village of Mancon on 15 May 2019, and the murder of 2 men on 10 July 2019. On the July 2018 murder of 2 women and their children accused by the Cameroonian army of being members of Boko Haram. Concerning the murder of 4 civilians and the enforced disappearance of 2 others on 26 June 2018 in the village of Muri, Far North region, by armed soldiers. Concerning the murder of 2 unarmed men by soldiers of the Rapid Intervention Battalion in a Buya neighborhood known as Great Sopo on 24 September 2018. Concerning the death of 4 people in the Far North region in April 2015. And the death of a man attributed to the FDS during an operation to arrest Indian hemp growers on 4 September 2017 in the village of Kifen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stop here my presentation.
Gracias, señor Contese. A continuación, ofrezco la palabra a otros miembros del comité que desean